you doing today? This is your host, Jorge Chiriboga. Thank you for tuning into the podcast this week. This week, I want to do something special for you guys. I want to do a producer spotlight, and we're going to be talking about Pharrell Williams. Pharrell Williams, extremely talented guy, producer, singer/songwriter. He's worked with a lot of legendary acts. His credit list is extremely long. He's probably produced some of your favorite popular songs, pop music that have been on the radio over the last 20 years, like Gwen Stefani's Holla Back Girl. I know I love that song. But anyways, he grew up in Virginia Beach. He was a music producer/singer, specifically in the hip-hop and pop genres. He used to listen to a lot of records. He used to sit in front of his stereo growing up with his aunt and just kind of play these records, just listen and enjoy the music, and that's where his passion for music really came out of. His first purchased record was an album by a tribe called Quest, which is actually a very popular rap group from that golden era in the 90s of hip-hop. He was discovered in a high school talent show by a Teddy Riley scout. Teddy Riley is a very, very big songwriter or record label executive, and Ted Riley sends a scout every year to a talent show in this high school because this high school was for gifted students. And of course, that's why Pharrell Williams was there, and that's where he met longtime friend Chad Hugo, which in 1994 they created the group The Neptunes. Chad Hugo and Pharrell Williams were just friends making music, and they had so much music together that they just created a name for themselves. And they were a very in-demand production team that worked with artists such as Usher, Justin Timberlake, Jay-Z, Marilyn Manson, Britney Spears, Mary J. Blige. And in 1992, the Neptunes sold their first track to rap ensemble Rex and Effect, which was on their second studio album and ended up being platinum certified. In 1994, Riley had the Neptunes produce a song for his R&B vocal group called Blackstreet. And after producing Super Thug for Noriega in 1998, the music industry immediately took notice of Pharrell Williams and the Neptunes. And then this is when Pharrell started making money off of his music. So he was able to leave his job at McDonald's, where he was working throughout high school. And that's actually incidentally where he created and produced the I'm Loving It jingle for McDonald's. In the early 2000s, Pharrell, alongside Chad Hugo and another creative individual, Shay, created a band called No One Ever Really Dies, or more famously known as Nerd. Ironically, the albums under Nerd never sold as much as the music that they were making for other artists. Nerd sound was very different, very diverse. It was a fusion of jazz, rock, soul, and hip-hop. And Nerd's music never got much airtime on the radio, but that was simply because DJs weren't really sure where to place the music. Pharrell once explained that their music was kind of like being a owner of a Ferrari, where Ferraris were meant to be driven in high-class neighborhoods, in the hills, kind of fancy areas. They weren't really meant to be driven in places like the ghetto. So Pharrell explained that Nerd's music was very in-between music, but they didn't really care where it was being played because their music was just a form of expression. It was like a musical outlet that these three individuals had. So they just made music as they please, and they just kind of expected it to be played everywhere, but they just make music for themselves, and that's the way they wanted to push themselves. So that's my producer spotlight for this week. Pharrell Williams, amazing guy. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time.